This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Hello, I'm Tensai Gabeau, your host for the news this hour. Stay tuned. We'll start with Ethiopia. China and Ethiopia have agreed to strengthen cooperation across a wide range of sectors, from infrastructure and green industry to the digital economy and artificial intelligence, following talks in Addis Ababa between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Wang, who is on his annual New Year tour of Africa, said China is ready to better align its development strategies with Ethiopia to elevate their all-weather strategic partnership. The meeting marked the first stop of Wang's 6-day African visit and underscored Beijing's focus on deepening ties with one of the continent's fastest-growing economies. Foreign Minister Wang called for accelerating trade and economic cooperation and advancing high-quality Belt and Road collaboration between China and Africa. Beijing views Ethiopia as a model partner under President Xi Jinping's flagship infrastructure initiative and a key growth market, with the IMF forecasting economic growth of 7.2% this year. Both sides agreed to expand cooperation in traditional sectors such as trade, infrastructure, energy, transportation, and legal affairs, while also deepening engagement in emerging areas, including e-commerce, artificial intelligence, and green energy. The talks further covered plans to strengthen people-to-people exchanges through cooperation in culture, tourism, media, education, and think tanks. Wang is scheduled to continue his Africa tour to visits to Somalia, Tanzania, and Lesotho, with the trip running until January 12. African fintech companies are expected to enter a new phase of profitable growth in 2026, shifting from a focus on attracting foreign capital to becoming global investment destinations, according to the African Fintech Summit. AFTS Managing Director Zakaria Samsalu said the ecosystem is evolving into a globally relevant hub powered by African founders, talent, and infrastructure, with fintech solutions increasingly being exported beyond the continent. He noted that 2025 marked a turning point as fintech firms prioritize sustainability and profitability, supported by regulatory reforms, multiple IPOs on local exchanges, and more than $3 billion raised by African startups. Recent deals such as the Flutterwaves acquisition of open banking from firm Mono reflect growing consolidation and a push toward interoperable, data-driven financial systems tailored to African markets. Looking ahead, Amsalu said 2026 will bring deeper convergence between fintech banks and telecoms, increased local investments, and stronger global partnerships, positioning Africa as a key driver of global digital finance. In Ethiopia, more homes and businesses now have access to electricity. Access to power supports education, healthcare, and local businesses. Light changes lives. African Union Commission Chairperson Mohamed Ali Youssef has described the growing people-to-people partnership between China and African Union member states as a major milestone in China-Africa cooperation, underscoring its importance for deeper collaboration and amid global uncertainty. In an interview with Pulse of Africa, Chairperson Mohamed Ali Youssef said China has consistently demonstrated its commitment to Africa through action rather than rhetoric. He noted that China has proven itself to be a loyal, friendly partner, delivering tangible results that have strengthened trust and cooperation with African countries over the years. Highlighting the current global context, the chairperson and the world said the world is going through troubled and transformative times, making it essential for Global South to reinforce solidarity and partnerships.
Is a milestone in terms of collaboration and cooperation between China and the African member countries of the African Union. We believe that China is a loyal and very friendly country. It has proved in the past that China is not only talking, but China is doing. And we believe also that we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We believe also that the world is passing through very troubled times. It's very important that the Global South, strengthen its relationship and see how best we can adapt ourselves to these transformations.
He stressed that closer cooperation among developing countries is critical to adapting to economic, political, and technological shifts shaping the international system. Chairperson Mohammed Ali Youssef also emphasized the need for Africa to learn from China's development experience, particularly in technology transfer, skills development, and industrial know-how.
China is a loyal and very friendly country. It has proved in the past that China is not only talking. We also believe that if China has become one of the first, developing country, one of the world, economic power, we need to learn from China in this continent. We need to ask China transfer of technology, know-how, and we also have to accelerate our own transformation on the continent. And we have the plans and strategies for that. And we also believe that China will help the African countries to rise up to the challenges of this time.
He said Africa must accelerate its own transformation through clear strategies and long-term plans, expressing confidence that China will continue to support African countries in addressing contemporary challenges and advancing sustainable development. Algeria's non-hydrocarbon exports reached more than $4.3 billion in the first 9 months of 2025, according to a 26% increase compared with the same period in 2024. The strong performance reflects a sustained push to diversify the economy away from oil and gas, with export levels exceeding those recorded over the past 2 years. Monthly data show a clear upward trend despite a slow start to the year, with exports stood at $296 million in January, marking a year-on-year decline. Momentum picked up steadily in the following months, with exports rising to $452 million by October, representing a 42% increase compared with the same period last year. July was a standout month as non-hydrocarbon exports peaked at a record $490 million, a sharp 74% rise year-on-year, underlining the growing strength of Algeria's export diversification drive. Now we bring you a special update from Addis Ababa, where African ambassadors and diplomats of various positions from across the continent paid a high-profile visit to the newly launched African media platform, Pulse of Africa. The initiative, officially inaugurated at its headquarters by His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, aims to strengthen Africa's voice in media and foster greater continental collaboration. Our coverage captures the highlights of this landmark visit and what it means for African journalism and unity. Our colleague Zelalem Beltal is here to update us. Thank you, Zelalem.
Thank you.
What can you tell us about the events here today?
Thank you very much, Sensei. So as you said in your introduction, various African ambassadors, members of diplomatic community and invited guests paid a quick but a very productive visit to the Pulse of Africa. And of course, the ambassadors and members of diplomatic community paid visit to the Pulse of Africa based on the request of the Pulse of Africa. The Pulse of Africa has a grand vision and objective of changing and countering the wrong narratives of Africa. And Pulse of Africa do understand that it cannot realize these grand grand vision alone, and it needs to collaborate and cooperate with African brothers and sisters. With that belief, Pulse of Africa invited those ambassadors and members of diplomatic community, and based on the request, they visited the Pulse of Africa. They visited this studio and other studios and our archive systems and other state-of-the-art media technologies, and they were very much amazed and impressed at what has been done here at the Pulse of Africa. And a short presentation and discussion was also conducted, and ambassadors and members of diplomatic community forwarded their reflections. They provided their ideas, and they shared their excitement at the Pulse of Africa. So one of their excitement and one of their idea was in fact praising and commending the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed. As we know, the Pulse of Africa was established with the vision of His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed. Dr. Abiy Ahmed is a major proponent of African development, African unity, and African integration. And in particular, His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, during his speech at the 35th Ordinary Session of African Union, has emphasized on the significance and importance of establishing a Pan-African media institution that can tell the story of Africa with its authenticity, with integrity, and with pride. You know, the narratives of Africa, the stories of Africa written and spoken by non-Africans, and that have a grave danger on Africa's economy, Africa's diplomacy and politics. The views and the perceptions reflected by non-Africans were inaccurate and incomplete as well. So His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed was emphasizing for the establishment of Pan-African Media Institution that can tell the complete and accurate and nuanced stories of Africa. And based on his vision, the Pulse of Africa has been established on 7th of October 2025, and it was inaugurated by His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed. So the ambassadors and members of diplomatic community commended His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed for his steadfast commitment for the affairs and issues of Africa. And the ambassadors also commended the objectives of Pulse of Africa. The major objective behind Pulse of Africa, as we know, is to change the narratives of Africa. Like I said, the narratives of Africa were written by non-Africans and they were inaccurate and incomplete. So the objective of Pulse of Africa is to change these stereotypes on Africa, the negative portrayals of Africa, and that will have a significant impact, a positive impact for Africa. For example, recent research showed that because of the wrong portrayal of Africa, Africa lose like 4.2 billion US dollar annually, and that's a great deal of money, isn't it? So changing the narratives of Africa means improving the livelihood of Africa, improving the development of Africa, changing the scenarios of Africa. So this was very much commended by the ambassadors and members of diplomatic community, and they also shared the idea that the different programs existed at the Pulse of Africa, such as the Africa We Want, Dorado, the Notables and others, reflect the realities of Africa, and they are very much instrumental to promote the resources of Africa, the endowments of Africa. For example, Africa has rich natural resources. Africa is endowed with enormous natural resources necessary to bring about the desired level of prosperity. So those resources need to be promoted by Pan-African media institutions like Pulse of Africa, and they shared the late president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, saying, he said, Africa is not poor, but Africans are. So Africa is rich in natural resources. So to make Africans rich, to enrich Africans, we need to utilize the resource of Africa, and media like Pulse of Africa will play a pivotal role in this regard, they said. And the ambassadors also said that continental organizations like the African Union need to work with Pulse of Africa. The vision and the objectives of Pulse of Africa is very much in line with the African Union. For example, African Union in its Agenda 2063 wants to see a prosperous, peaceful and integrated Africa, and this is very much in line with the goal of Pulse of Africa. The goal of Pulse of Africa is also to bring about unity among Africans. So their visit is very much instrumental in further improving the works of Pulse of Africa, and we will continue to update our audience on their ideas and reflections on the Pulse of Africa.
Thank you, Zelalem, for the update.
Thanks.
Moving to business news, Ghana's inflation rate dropped to 5.4% year-on-year in December 2025, down from 6.3% in November, marking the 12th consecutive month of easing price pressures, according to the Ghana Statistical Service. The Consumer Price Index rose to 261.7 in December from 240.8 a year earlier, indicating a sharp slowdown from the 23.8% inflation recorded in December 2024. On a month-on-month basis, inflation stood at 0.9%, showing modest price increases toward the end of the year. The Statistical Service said the decline reflects improving macroeconomic conditions, with lower inflation recorded across food and non-food items, goods and services, as well as both locally produced and imported products, pointing to a sustained shift toward price stability. The African Development Bank has successfully raised €1 billion, a three-year global benchmark bond, marking its return to the UK sterling market amid strong investor demand. Priced on 7th of January, the bond carries a 3.75% annual coupon and matures in January 2029. The transaction attracted orders exceeding €2.3 billion from more than 50 investors, making it the bank's largest ever issuance in the sterling market. Strong demand allowed the AfDB to tighten pricing to SONIA mid-swaps plus 34 basis points, reflecting favorable market conditions and confidence in bank's AAA credit ratings from Moody's, S&P, and Fitch. Bank treasuries took the largest share of the bond at 66%, while central banks and official institutions accounted for 26%, underscoring broad sovereign and institutional support. The deal extends the AfDB's sterling yield curve and highlights its ability to tap deep liquidity in global markets while diversifying to an investor basis. Now to sports. Mali and Senegal meet in a high-stakes West African showdown in the quarterfinals of the Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025, with the match set for Friday at the Grande Stade de Tanger. Kickoff is scheduled for 1500 GMT as both sides battle for a place in the semifinals. Senegal enters the contest with familiarity on their side, having played all their matches in Tangier during the tournament. Mali arrives after a more demanding travel schedule, reaching the last 8 following a tense round of 16 victory decided by penalties. The historical record strongly favors Senegal, who are unbeaten in their last 13 encounters with Mali and hold a clear advantage in overall meetings. The two sides have met only once before at AFCON finals levels, drawing 1-1 in the 2004 group stage. Mali have reached the quarterfinals without a win in the open play at this tournament, but remain competitive, driven by strong defensive performances and key contributions in attack. Senegal, meanwhile, are enjoying one of their most consistent AFCON runs, extending a long unbeaten streak in the competition. With Mali seeking a first semi-final appearance in over a decade and Senegal aiming to continue their push for another continental title, the quarterfinals promises an intense contest between two of West Africa's football heavyweights. Now let's take a look at the weather conditions across Africa. That wraps up our broadcast from POA News for this hour. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more updates from Africa.